Hey everybody, welcome to Kirks Grocery.
Mary, are you vaccinated?
I happen to be fully vaccinated. How about you?
I am as well. So according to the CDC, we can take off these masks.
We can take these masks off. So,
and we'd just like to take this moment too to say to you viewers at home, get vaccinated. It's the right thing to do.
It's the right time. It's pretty easy to do if you're in Montana right now, and hopefully getting easier everywhere else too.
Amen.
Yeah. I'm here with artist, photographer, Todd Forsgren. We're here to take a deep dive into his exhibition today. Welcome, Todd.
I'm excited.
I'm also excited. Yeah, and we're going to take a look at two different themes of your work.
2.5.
2.5. Oh, that's right.
There's a little exclusive tonight. If you've been to the show before, a new piece that we just put in today that you haven't seen before.
Yeah, it even surprised me as we were setting up for this, so that is extremely exciting. Yeah. So, Todd, do you want to just say a little bit about what brings not just your work, but brings you to Billings and to Kirks Grocery?
Of course. So I moved to Billings last July, actually. I have a new position at Rocky Mountain College as one of the art professors there, and really excited to join the team. Really felt like a homecoming for me. I went to a small liberal arts college, not dissimilar from Rocky, when I was an undergraduate, and so it feels great to be there. Actually, today was our last day of classes, so now I'm officially on summer break.
Congratulations.
Which is also pretty awesome, and reconnects me with my youth and that youthful feeling of being on summer break. And in terms of being here at Kirks Grocery, one of the first people I met in town was Shane, introduced through a mutual friend, and we've had a bunch of really great, deep conversations about art and music, and we've drank some beers together, and just really got along well. So when he said, "Hey, you want to show some photographs?" I was like, "Hell yeah, bring it on."
Nice. Well, let's get into some of those photographs. Should we take a look at the ones that are right here closest to us?
That works for me.
That works for me too. I don't know,
Yeah.
Did you want to turn a little? I can see them from where I am.
Yeah. So right now, these two up here, this is the clay-colored thrush, and this is black-headed nightingale thrush. Photographed both of these in Veracruz in Mexico, alongside some amazing ornithologists there, my friends Angie and Rafa. I spent a couple of weeks there over several spring breaks. They're both ornithologists who use this technique called mist netting in order to capture birds and put little bands on them, and then those bands and the other, they draw blood. There's all sorts of different research that's going on here. And so, for example, you can see this one's been caught before. Here we have he's got one metal band on his leg there, and then one color band. And so ornithologists catch, in the United States, over 1 million birds this way every year as part of research, and that research is incredibly diverse in terms of its scope. Some of it is, looking at things like how birds are spread different viruses, like West Nile virus or avian influenza or different things like that. Others are, how birds are influential in terms of forest regeneration, and they spread seeds around and help new forests grow, or different basic ecological research in terms of bird populations, and the really troubling research that we have, or data that we have about how bird populations are in pretty steep decline, across species and taxa and around the world, due to the effects of climate change and forest fragmentation and other ecological issues.
So for you, as an artist, as a photographer, right?
Yeah.
Did you have that existing relationship with the ornithologist that drew you into the situation? Like where's that intersection?
Yeah. So I was a bird watcher before I was a photographer and artist. So I grew up watching birds along the coasts of the north coast of the United States in Lake Erie. Love bird watching. The first artwork that I really related to was the work of field guides by John James Audubon or Roger Tory Peterson. And this work came about in part as a response to that and trying to sort of create a contemporary version of those field guides that wrestled with some of those ideas that I was wrestling with as, teenage and preteen birdwatcher, and then moving into, spending my undergraduate balancing both art and science classes, and so it's sort of a long-term trajectory.
Of having birds and the artist's eye or the photographer's eye in your life.
Exactly, yeah, and thinking about a new way to deal with some of these issues that field guides deal with, but create a different kind of visual record, not one that's useful to ornithologists or even avian enthusiasts, but is in terms of identifying birds, but is a tool about education and empathy for the plight of these creatures.
So when you talk about empathy through your work, right, I feel like when I first saw the pieces, I mean, the first thing you wonder is exactly what's happening in this moment to the bird. Like, what is that moment? Maybe we should stand up and start moving around.
Let's do it. Let's check out some other pieces.
I think it's hard to see the work when we're in the corner. It's better when we get on the wall. See the bigger pieces as well.
So here we've got a golden-crowned warbler. This was also photographed in Mexico. We're heading south, and then we'll head north, and then we'll head. We're fluctuating. All these birds are photographed in the Americas, the New World. So this, in terms of these ideas about empathy, it's interesting because this series has been up here for about 2 weeks now, and Shane has mentioned that a lot of people walk in here and they kind of cringe, and they're like, "Oh, what's going on?" It's like there's a moment of unsettling, kind of like these creatures are in this really strange liminal space, and I think I'm sure that most of our viewers have walked into a bar here in Montana and seen a big bison or elk head above the bar, or one of their friends' houses, and seen those sort of trophies of mammals much closer related to us than birds, of course, in these very static poses, right, of the trophy. But here we have this super dynamic pose. It's in this liminal space between being a bird in the hand versus a bird in the bush, between being known and unknown, between being free and being captured, and we can see that in sort of the tenseness of its muscles. And so that's certainly is something that is intentional. I want to trap the viewer as much as I want to trap the bird. Barnett Newman, the abstract expressionist, has a famous quip. He said, aesthetics are for artists as ornithology is for the birds. So ornithology is the study of birds, and he was a bird watcher as well, and so very much thinking of that relationship between viewer and subject, and trying to shake people up and trying to get them to think and care and feel. Yeah.
And when you talk about viewer and subject, when you engage with the bird to take the photograph, is the bird then drawing its attention to you?
Yeah, I mean, one of the real key things about all of these images is eye contact with these birds, and so you can see that the eye is something that I want the bird to be aware that it's being photographed. And sometimes when you're, I spent probably a year in the field with ornithologists taking these pictures, and there's 57 images in the whole portfolio, and I probably took about 500 photographs of probably about 200 birds over the course of that time, but also caught thousands of birds. Probably in one day in coastal Texas, we probably caught 1,000 birds.
Wow.
And so the pose has to do with a relationship between the viewer and the subject, the way that the bird is contorted within the net, and the net is also obviously a really important element of these images, and so the different ways that the net becomes contorted by birds, and sort of our rational understanding, if we think of this Cartesian sort of idea of reason and a grid and things like that, how that gets like messed up by our emotional impact of these birds and these nets and this fraught state that they appear in.
Oh, that's interesting. The emotional impact for the bird and then for the viewer seeing the bird, like you were saying before. Wow, I like that intersection. And when you would be thinking about the shot, I mean, would you be thinking primarily about the position of the bird, the net, all of it, or would it just depend on the situation over all that time?
Yeah, that's, oftentimes when I'm making these images, there's not a lot of time to think. So essentially, I'm hanging out in jungles in Puerto Rico or Brazil or Costa Rica or Mexico, or temperate forests in Maryland and California and Maine and Massachusetts and Ohio.
This is all over, yeah. And you're from Ohio, right? Back to the source, yeah.
So they're essentially, normally when ornithologists are doing this research, they have a certain amount of time between every time they check the nets. Mm-hmm. So like, let's say, for example, it would be an hour. It would vary a little bit depending on the species that they're studying. Mm-hmm. But then when I came along, they would say, okay, well, we'll check them every 50 minutes. And then, so you have 10 minutes to take this photograph so that we would know that essentially I wasn't keeping the bird in a net longer than it would have been if I wasn't there. So I just have 10 minutes to be like, okay, nope, that bird's
So you're not extending the time the bird would have been in the net originally.
Yeah, that's sort of an important ethical decision on my part. Obviously it's slightly ethically, or to some people extremely ethically fraught to take these photographs, and so I made some choices to try to mitigate that concern, and that was one of them. And so it would just be if a bird's in trouble in these nets, you can immediately tell, and it's just nope, take it out, let's let it go, and they don't even put the bands on it that you see on.
Oh, they don't even do the scientific work if the bird's in extreme distress?
Exactly, yeah, and so it's okay, well, we saw this bird fly into the net. We know it's been here for a minute. Let's set it up and take a picture, and so it's setting up. Lighting quite a bit like the lighting that you see in here in this gallery as we're doing this live view. It's a softbox, and then a white background that's being held behind the bird, and so a lot of it is intuition in terms of composition, and then intuition in terms of how the bird is looking at you and relating to it. It's just no, let's take it, let's not take it, etc.
So I'm not a photographer, so walk through that moment. So you're out in the jungle. Okay. This bird is entangled in the net, and then the scientists, you have this arrangement. Okay, you have your 10 minutes, and I mean, you said there's you've got the white background, you've got the soft box, but literally what happens when it's Todd, go. Why don't we move down to another one?
You're not a photographer. You're also not an ornithologist, are you?
I am not an ornithologist either. So it's perfect for viewers who are neither.
Good to check in. So let's walk through the whole process.
Yeah, the whole process.
From the ornithology side and the photography side, and try
I think that'd be great, because that's what I'm asking when I look.
Back and forth through those two things. So essentially, the ornithologists, again, and these are sort of general numbers, and they would vary depending from study to study. Might set up 10 nets, mm-hmm. And those nets are about 2 meters tall and about 20 meters long. For our non-metric viewers, that's about 7 feet tall, 6.5 feet tall.
Like Shane?
Shane size, Shane height, and 4 Shanes long. So they would set up 10 of these nets throughout the woods, and they might be, it might be a mile loop that you would have to walk every 50 minutes or so to find if there's any birds caught in these nets. And so then they would, basically they're cut. There are these lanes that are cut in the jungle. So oftentimes, when I'm taking this image, I'm, this one in the jungle. This was in Maryland. This northern saw-white owl. we would essentially be in a pretty dense forest though, and I would be backed up against the forest. We would have a lane cut out for these nets, and a white background behind me, behind the bird, and then I would have a soft box, so something to baffle the light to create a very soft lighting, and then a bounce on the other side to reflect some light back in. And this is all shot with a 4x5 camera, so a large format camera. Looks like an accordion made out of wood.
Oh, to get the big image, is that the big print?
Yeah, when I started this project in 2006, just digital cameras were so different than they are now 15 years later. And so in terms of making a print this big with a digital camera, I couldn't afford a fancy enough digital camera. And I couldn't afford like the fancy telephoto lenses that wildlife photographers were using. And so I in part came up with this system due to pragmatism and not being able to afford some of that kit. So figuring out a unique strategy to make these photos.
So you've got this accordion style camera out in the jungle, or in Maryland in this case, with you. Mm-hmm. And are you like ready to go with a tripod, or are you just out there?
Oh no, it's all on tripod. Yeah.
Okay.
You can't. Basically, my depth of field here, and you can tell in this image in particular, in part because it was taken in the dark, and so I was, and the bird is sort of very three-dimensionally in the net, but you can see how narrow the depth of field is, and so you really have to nail your focus. So. The net back here is so soft, and that's only probably less than a foot behind the bird, right? So my depth of field is an inch or two. And so even with this type of camera, if there was like a slight breeze, it was
that must happen all the time, right?
Called it a day.
Yeah.
It's like you start in the morning, and then the wind starts to build up, and okay, well now I'm going to just be an ornithologist. I'm not going to be a photographer anymore, because if I'm trying to take these pictures, I'm just going to be wasting money on soft, photos where the bird's out of focus.
But is that part of your process as an artist, where there's an element to this work where you are purely looking, where you're not able to shoot the photo, or you don't get the shot, and you're spending that time observing? Is that part of your process?
I mean, certainly I enjoyed all the time I spent in the field. And I had insights about other projects and science in general, talking to the ornithologists that I was working with and avian research. But this isn't, we'll look at some process-based work in a minute. This isn't process-based work. This is work that actually, I remember the moment that I thought of this project was in 2005, when I was living in Boston and was walking along the Charles River one morning, and I saw a black-crowned night heron that had gotten caught in a fence and strangled itself, actually. And it was just this really stark image of this heron against the white sky. And it really reminded me of John James Audubon's photographs, or sorry, not photographs, but paintings. By the time I got home, I had thought of, I knew how I was going to photograph the birds. And
wow.
Then it took a couple of years to really develop the sort of the technical expertise I needed to use the 4x5 camera and the lights in the field in order to make the images that I wanted to make. But this is a conceptual project. There was an idea, and then there was a realization of that idea. And so, if I could have taken all these photos in a week, I don't think the images would have been any worse. I mean, certainly I think, spending a year in the field with the ornithologist was a privilege and was frickin' awesome and so much fun. But that is not part of the artistic process. The artistic process, like the idea happened in a moment, and then it just took me 10 years to realize that idea, due to technical and financial and all sorts of other concerns.
Oh, wow. But you were committed to the idea over that long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Was there a point when you knew that you had finished this, or have you not finished it? Could you be back out in the field?
You know, I've thought about doing a Montana portfolio of this work, which would be fun. And I have some colleagues at Rocky Mountain College who do this sort of research. And you know, I remember I got to like 57 images that I was happy with, and I thought, well, you know, Heinz has 57 flavors of ketchup, and that's enough for them. And so that seemed like it was enough for me. And you know, this was in 2014. I had a deal with a publisher to publish a book on the work, and I was about to become a dad. My daughter's 5 years old now, almost going on 6, and so it's like it was sort of like a practical end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the book that we'll see later that's here at Kirks Grocery that you just mentioned?
Oh yeah, there are.
That's right.
That is one of several books that are here at Kirks Grocery that we'll take a look at.
Several books.
And it has all 57 of those photographs in it.
That's right. You didn't leave 1 or 2 out just to play a trick on everybody.
And it's funny, there are a couple images that I have like small editions of before I decided they weren't quite up to snuff for that portfolio. But so here's the summer tanager. This one was photographed in Costa Rica, but it's flies up to my home state of Ohio in the summertime. Wow. So the western tanager is around here in Montana. So the western tanager has that same super bright red head, but then it has a yellow body and a black tail and black wings. It's one of my favorite birds, and I still like remember when I was 12 years old and my family was visiting the Grand Tetons for one of my dad's veterinary conferences, and my father wrote the introduction to my book actually as a veterinarian and someone who's very much in the animal rights world.
A veterinarian who works on birds, or does he not work on birds?
You know, dogs and cats. He's a small animal vet. Like I was, you know, and part of the reason I was so excited to move back to Billings or to Billings is because of those profound experiences at the Grand Tetons as a kid, where I really would say I in part fell in love with bird watching. I remember, you know, the western tanager I saw there, and the American dipper I saw there, and the mountain bluebirds I saw hovering, and a blackback woodpecker, and you know, all these three-toed woodpecker, all these crazy cool birds, and jagged mountains that a little 12-year-old boy from Ohio just could, you know, barely dream of mountains, right?
I know, I'm from New Jersey. The first time I went out west, it's very, people from Montana take for granted how you're just kind of stricken with awe. Yeah. And have you seen a western tanager since you have moved to Billings? Have you seen one in Montana?
I have, yeah. I saw one on the back 9 last summer.
Oh, nice.
And there's a lot of mountain bluebirds there. This past, I guess it was mid-March, I saw an American dipper when we were driving through Yellowstone. And so I've recreated some of those experiences. I think that, you know, the impact I had was when I was 12 at seeing these things is so far not registered with my daughter. I haven't converted her into a bird watcher yet.
Not yet. Well, she's 5. There's still time to convert her into a bird watcher. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I love the color on this one. Yeah. And just the arrangement of the nets.
Yeah, this one was a real pain in the butt to get out of the net. You can see he's been caught before. But some of them that we'll see in the next section of the exhibition, you'll see there's just like sort of one layer of net here. But here you see like there's 3 overlapping layers of net, and basically that means he's really gotten himself tangled up. But you know, he was still extracted safely and released, and so, you know, as I said, 1 million birds are caught this way every year in the United States alone, and far, far more if we talk about the rest of the planet. All the birds that I photographed were released and without trauma. I think Shane might have a question for us.
Oh.
We have a question from a watcher named Sora, and asks, why is the bird red?
Why is the bird red, Sora would like to know.
Oh, that's a good question,
Have you
Sora.
heard of this, Sora?
I have. She may be my daughter, who I'm trying to make a bird watcher.
Sora is awesome.
So the bird is red because the ladybirds thinks that's super hot. So this is what we call sexual selection. So obviously, a red bird is it's the complementary color compared to green. So hi, Sora. But because that pigment is both expensive to produce biochemically, and because it is, makes you a target for predators.
Oh yeah, that's right.
If you can hang out in the forest and be bright red, you are.
You're brave.
You're badass.
Yeah,
So
you're
it's
brave and badass when you're a
know?
red bird.
Exactly. So when I wear pink, that's also like me being a badass.
Yeah. Well, why don't we come over to this badass black wall here?
Let's check it out.
And
that
just,
is badass black wall. Sora, don't use badass. It's a bad word.
We didn't
Or
even
ass.
use that word.
No. Yeah. Earmuffs. Sora, earmuffs.
So this is what you see when you first walk into Kirk's Grocery right now.
It is.
And I really love the way these pieces kind of work together. Oh, LB always comes out during one part of the live stream, and these are his pieces that are his choice right now.
Meow.
LB's choices. He's picked 5 pieces today. So as we get to this point, which is a point of introduction for most people walking in the door, should we wait to explain what these pieces are about? Let it soak in with the viewer, or do you want to give a little teaser as to what's happening with these?
I'm okay with a teaser. Are you guys
Yeah,
okay
we
with
can
teaser?
tease. Yeah.
Let's tease. So the exhibition is called Conflicting Systems, which I think are present in each individual series. The ornithological photographs are sort of about this conflict between empathy and emotion and rational understanding, which I think is something that is really paramount to when we start to think about climate change and ecology and such. So the net might be thought of as being indicative of the rational, and the bird might be what we think about as empathetic and emotional.
And which bird is this?
So this is a white-necked Jacobin,
Oh.
which, named after the Jacobins, Catholic order
Oh, really?
of priests that have this
Oh.
little white neck on them. So it's a type of hummingbird, and then these are contact prints, actually, of CDs. So maybe some of our younger viewers have never experienced the splendor of the compact disc.
Splendor?
The splendor of CD audio technology.
So I mean, it's obsolete now, right? Would you say it's obsolete?
I still listen to CDs.
Yeah?
Yeah. I only have a CD player in my car.
I was going to say I have a CD player
I
in my
don't
car.
have a tape player or an aux, so I just have CD player.
Uh-huh. So it has a specific context. It's, like a specific moment in history. It's sort of like my coming of age kind of moment. I'm 40 years old now. Gosh. Whew.
We'll edit that out, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. So, like CDs, I remember when my dad got his first CD player and, listening to like Bruce Springsteen and Tom Petty on CDs, and then getting my first CD of Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby, and then maybe graduating to like Jeff Buckley, and now Neutral Milk Hotel, which I guess, kids these days think is like way too over the top, and so they laugh at. Well, thank you. I'm glad that at least I'm among friends here who still think Neutral Milk Hotel is fucking awesome. Sora, earmuffs. So, it's like, but it's a specific moment in technology. And these are silver gelatin prints, which is a specific moment in, photographic technology, one that lasted a little bit longer than a CD. So, if we think of the height of the CD as like sort of the 90s to the early 2000s, so about a 10-year cycle there. before streaming, but after cassettes and records and before streaming. And silver gelatin prints were maybe a 100-year-long technology, right? And so those are two of three technologies that are colliding in this series. The third technology that's colliding here is a microwave. So silver gelatin prints that's a light-sensitive material. So it's, photography means drawing with light, and so they react to light. So these are negatives. So what's black here would be light. These are positives. So what is white here would be light. And in order to create that light, I employed the third technology, which was the microwave. Another thing that is sort of like this, invented in just after World War II, essentially.
A microwave was invented right after World War II, like
Yeah.
for a regular kitchen use?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Oh, it's from the 80s, yeah.
That's when we got our microwave, was the 80s. So it was also, but and in the 80s, I think that's when they were like kind of popularized.
That's when popcorn could go in them, yes.
Exactly. And so they're, like both of these moments, like when we got a CD player, when we got a microwave, it was like, wow, this is like the brave new world of new technology, with the Apple IIgs and like all the the new computers showing up, and now they're like so dated and old, so this is like a collision of these three technologies. So I took a CD, and I took a piece of photographic paper, and then I put it into a microwave, and I exploded the CD, because CDs have metal in them. Metal ignites in a microwave, and that explosion caused the images that you see here. I took the photo paper out, I ran it through a bunch of darkroom chemistry, dried it off, and here's what you have. So you can see this one has actually been quite burnt by it.
Oh, so that's fire.
As is that. So
wow.
those have both been burnt. This one here is resin-coated photo paper. So you see like bubbling of the plastic resin from the heat of that ignition, as well as the light. And so
it's interesting. There's a lot of emotion in the images of the birds, right? But then you have so much emotion for these images generated by like your love of CDs, your love of microwaves. And then as a photographer, you seem to have a love of silver gelatin.
Yeah, I mean, it's
well.
like, it's sentimental, and it's like a lot of these CDs were made they're mixed CDs that were made for friends.
Oh,
by
these
friends.
were personally,
These
so
were
that's
personal
different than
CDs,
when, for folks who don't know, you could buy CDs in the store, but you could also make a mix for your friends. Wow.
Exactly, and some of the difference in patterns has to do with whether it was a CD I bought in the store, or whether it was a burnt CD, or whether it was a DVD, and they all had slightly different sort of patterns. So there's this interaction between like, how long did I microwave it? What type of paper was it? What's what type of media was it in terms of compact disc? And
how many discs did you put through this process?
I don't know. They're all here in Kirks Grocery right now.
Oh, they're all here in Kirks
Grocery. We've got
Grocery.
this big wall here that has a display of unframed works, and then in the back there's actually a box that's full of all of them. And basically, I had a whole box of CDs, and I didn't have a CD player, and I had a whole box of photo papers of different types. I had a microwave, and I just, this is like, so this is one of those ideas I told you, that the bird photographs took a decade after having the idea to make them, but these CD photographs, they took a day to make. So this is one day of labor in terms of all of these CD photographs. I started in the morning, and I just like kept blowing them up and kept taking them through the chemistry, and yeah.
And I feel like usually when Shane and I do these live streams, we always remember to mention the pricing in case anyone wants to buy a piece online or come in. And do I remember the price? I'm going to take a look at the label unless you know off the top of your head.
They're $100 unframed.
$100 unframed.
As you see here, which I think is a bargain.
Yeah, I would say it's a bargain. And I would also say that, I mean, this is a
silver
sample.
gelatin prints. Exactly. There's lots more in the back. We can pull one off the wall tonight, if you want one.
Wow. So we just pulled these off the wall for you on demand.
Exactly.
Everybody out there in internet land and in Billings.
Yeah.
This is what my students think burning CDs actually means.
Ah, yeah, burning CDs. Yeah,
I
exactly.
have no clue what it means. Amanda says she's excited to be watching.
Who's
Oh,
Amanda?
Q.
Amanda Q, Associate Curator at the Yellowstone Art Museum.
Oh,
And
hey,
she
Amanda
says
Q.
hello to LB as well.
Oh,
What up,
LB,
LB?
he appreciates the love always.
All
Hi.
the birds you can buy at the website.
Oh,
The frame, none of the CDs are on there, just to let you know.
Okay, so the
Oh.
birds are on the website, but the CDs are not. So
they're not
Yeah.
yet, perhaps.
Probably at least some of them.
Yeah,
we're
they-
working on that.
But the thing about Kirk's Grocery is if you come by or if you call or if you send a message through any of our media,
Personal FaceTime and gallery walking.
wow,
Yeah.
personal FaceTime gallery walk is also available at Kirk's because we've leapt into the future since we've opened.
Fantastic customer service here.
Here, Kirks,
I have to
yeah.
say.
Yeah, and
You
if you
know,
watch the
you
old
can-
live streams, you'll see that we've leapt into the future now, yeah.
And not only can you buy artwork remotely, but if you come in here, you can actually get free food.
That is true. Eat, Share, Give has set up here in Kirk's Grocery. So if you are
Mm-hmm.
hungry for any reason, whether it's a casual peckish feeling or whether you need a substantial meal, we are here for you. Oh,
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
take a
let's
look.
Take a look at there's the.
Let's take a look. Sometimes we don't have too
See
much
what we
before the
got in here.
weekend because it's kind of set up that way. What do we have inside here today, Todd?
Looks like there's some bagels and some sandwiches.
Oh, we do have bagels, sandwiches.
Should we eat some? Do you want to eat some carrots?
You can, yes,
Let's
let's.
have some carrots.
Here, I'll open this
need
up in a
some-
game show kind of way. Should we point out to Sora that this is healthy eating?
Yeah.
Healthy
Sora?
eating.
Carrots, high in beta-carotene. Delicious. Would you like some?
There we go. And that's Eat, Share, Give. Yes,
Eat,
I'll
Share,
have
Give.
one. And actually, can we also give one to our friend who's just down below us? LB, sit. There you go, pups. Okay, so now we've got some carrots.
That is
Let's
a
take a
healthy
look
dog.
at. He is a healthy dog. He
Yeah.
likes carrots. Let's hope he doesn't get run over by our equipment now.
Uh-huh.
Should we jump into this surprise experience here?
Let's do it. Let's do
All
it.
right, let's.
Especially LB's
Now,
on the floor. Let's keep
LB,
it focused
he
on
likes
the floor.
to be in the way, so he's got his carrot in the way.
I bet this crunching of carrots is great for the microphone.
I bet it is.
It's like some ASMR carrot crunch.
Oh yeah.
It is.
We're
This
gonna
is
have a whole new YouTube.
this is our
group here.
ASMR moment, everybody.
So,
Ooh, this just appeared. Surprised me. Came out of nowhere.
so this is a new piece that was just installed today. Though it's a piece I originally made maybe about 6 or 7 years ago.
I will lure him away.
So this piece is called Bear Filter Array Garden. And if you come into the gallery, you're welcome to step on it.
Ooh.
You know, it should be experienced with.
Oh, I will also come in and take a
Yeah,
sip.
yeah, come on.
Oh, yes.
Come on in, the water's great. So a Bear filter array is essentially the way that most all of our digital cameras read images. So there are three primary colors in digital technology, red, green, and blue. And as you add them together, you know, we have the secondaries of cyan, magenta, and yellow. And those move towards white as you add more and more light. But if you think about, you know, your camera chip, be it your phone or your fancy digital camera, unless you've got a Fovan or X-Trans sensor or something like that. But most, you know, like 98% of camera sensors are based on this, where 1 pixel, you know,
This
reads
would be
green
1
light.
pixel?
Yep.
Okay.
1 pixel reads red light, and 1 pixel reads blue light.
Looks like that game Simon. Okay.
Simon
yep.
says, yeah, I like
Oh,
that.
no, the one where you press the buttons, but that's real old
Oh.
school technology, folks. Okay.
Oh, I remember that.
So we've got these pixels, red, blue, and green.
Right. And then based on how much blue is here and blue is here, it will decide how much blue should be there, and how much green is here and green is here. It decides how much green should be there. So it pieces together that information using algorithms to create a full color image based on those primaries of red, green, and blue, right? So that's the first sort of weird layer of information about this piece. The second layer is, so are you familiar with Carl Andre's work?
No, I mostly just know his name in passing. I don't know much about his work.
That's fair enough. He was a minimalist and conceptualist, kind of coming up in the 60s. Do you know Anna Mendietta's work?
No, that's a totally new name. Oh, this is a time of learning for me. Yeah.
Well.
I'm ready to hear
You
more.
should look into Anamentieta. She's an amazing sort of performance and.
Oh, wait, I think I do know her name. I've never known how to pronounce it. How do you spell her last name? Oh.
You're going to make me
Just switch
spell
her.
on
No,
live Instagram,
No, we're not doing any
Facebook.
spelling, everyone. You spell it and put it in the chat, my friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if I mispronounced it to any of our Spanish-speaking audience, I sincerely
Then please
apologize.
put the phonetics in the chat.
Yeah,
Correct us,
yeah,
yes.
and correct me. I'm not too proud. Anyway, they were partners, and so Andre is infamous because many of Ana Mendieta's work is her silhouette in the ground, and he perhaps pushed or she fell out a window in New York in the 70s. So kind of a tragic story, and you know, Andre is part of that, you know, a group like Richard Serra and Saul LeWitt, you know, sort of taking sculpture off the pedestal, putting it on the ground. Actually, Andre encountered a grid not dissimilar from the one you see here, except the red and blue pixels would be stone, and the green pixels would have been moss at Tofukuji in Japan when he was there in, I think, in 1968, Tokyo Biennale. He went to Kyoto and went to Tofukuji. I also love, you know, Japanese art and Japanese gardening, and bonsai trees are another early access point to artwork for me. Anyway, this piece is sort of inspired by both that camera sensor pattern, that Tofukuji garden, Carl Andre's floor pieces, and this idea of taking the sculpture off the pedestal and putting it out into the world, and also satellites. So the size of these pixels is the size of the pixel of USGS satellites that are photographing the planet and are used for Google Maps.
This is the size of this very large size is the size of those pixels?
So these pixels, you know,
Wow.
these are about the size of many of the satellites. Some of the satellite pixels. There's certainly higher resolution satellites out there. So after this exhibition, I'm going to take chessboard size pieces. I'm a big chess player. I'm going to take chessboard numbered pieces out into the Pryor Mountains and the Bitterroots, and I'm going to plant them there and wait for the USGS satellites to come and photograph them.
Oh, that's great.
And it's going to mess with the satellites. So essentially it'll create strange moire, positive and negative reinforcement.
Well, I like that idea.
So that's this weird piece. Do we have a question from viewers at home?
Oh.
No questions, but Sally McIntosh says, welcome to Billings and to Rocky Mountain College, Todd.
Thank you, Sally.
It's like the
Oh,
best
we
person
do
in town to
have
welcome
one-
you.
sorry. Yes, thank
We
you,
do have a
Sally.
question?
We do have another question. Jamie
great.
Smith says, how does or could the carrot orange in your hand relate to the spectrum beneath your feet?
Oh,
Oh, no. I don't know.
let's disrupt this. Let's do it. Or add to it. Oh, this really is wreaking havoc on the emotions of the dog. He's a good boy.
I don't know. Maybe if anybody could give do a screen capture here and tell us the red, green, and blue values of this carrot, I would appreciate that.
It's a very interactive live screen.
You know? Yeah. I would guess it's about R 180, B 28, and G 5.
And viewers, if Todd is correct, you get to select a prize and send it to him. So let's see what happens. Let's see if you've guessed correctly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So for anyone who's willing to do that research, you can also give Todd a prize if he is correct. So let's see
Any
what
of you
happens.
can really give me a prize if you want to.
Or at any time.
Yeah,
you could give
I am
out prizes.
always accepting prizes.
Beyond the carrots, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the only prize that LJ wants, can I give him one more carrot?
LB may
LB.
have the prize of one more carrot. He's a
Okay.
healthy animal. There he goes.
Plenty of beta.
He's not mic'd. We can't hear the crunch of him. Oh, there we go.
Oh, I think you can hear that crunch.
Yeah, I think we can hear that. All right. So should we return?
Yeah, let's check out this white-crowned sparrow.
All right. I'm just going to give LB a little space, and then I'll walk around the other side. He does not get out of the way, although we'll just coax him.
So this is actually one of the first of these photographs. I took it in California in 2006, and still one of my favorites, and one of the ones that the project really got known for when it was shown at a gallery in New York called Jen Beckman Gallery. And that was sort of like the first blush of news about the project, and sales from that gallery and another project of hers called 20 by 200 are what essentially funded me to like keep working on the series. So I'm really thankful to Jen and to her gallery and to 20 by 200. And this piece is still one of my favorites, even after the 1,000 birds that I have photographed since this guy back in 2006. None have had like the same sort of embarrassed swagger that this guy's got, or gal has got. It's hard to tell which. I don't know whether it was a male or female.
Yeah, there is something, I don't know, that seems somewhat singular about this pose and the look on the face. I don't know.
Yeah. Is the bird embarrassed? Is the bird an exhibitionist? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But.
And have you sold a lot of prints of this piece? Is this a very popular piece?
Yeah, I have actually.
Yeah. So it's not just you. So others also connect with this piece pretty strongly.
Yeah. It's a popular one for sales and for press and for the other contexts that the work has been shown in. People keep coming back to this, even though it's one of the first ones that.
And I think it's very human. Like as a human being,
yeah, it's
I
anthropomorphized,
feel like
right?
I've been in this situation. I think there's a universal element to this one.
Do you want to tell us about that moment?
About the moment when I've been
When
in
you
this,
felt like this?
When
Yeah.
I felt like this. It's happened so many times. It's hard to pick out one single moment.
Uh-huh.
But I do feel like we've all had moments where we're not at our best. It's beyond our control, and we just try to have a certain composure about us because
Yeah.
what other choice do we have in the circumstances? It's very COVID-19.
Yeah,
I
they're
think
hanging their
that's
head up with pride, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. And what kind of bird is this again? I'm sorry.
It's a white-crowned sparrow.
White-crowned sparrow. All right. Well, why don't we walk around LB?
Whereas here we have the opposite. So I wanted this like little emotional moment from embarrassed to pissed off in the photo. So this is a boat-billed flycatcher photographed in Costa Rica, who is clearly really aware of what's going on and not happy about it.
And so, I mean, there's a quiet aspect to being here in the gallery, but when you took this photo, what kind of sounds did you hear?
I mean, yeah, he was squawking. And it was taken in at a refuge called Catié in Costa Rica, in Toyabla. And flycatchers aren't really the sort, like if there's a blue jay caught in the net, or a jay, Steller's jay or gray jay, or you name it, like their friends will come up and be like, what's wrong? Hey, what's going on? Flycatchers aren't really like that. These guys are certainly fierce, but they're not necessarily as social as jays. So he didn't necessarily have his friends to back him up the way that the jays did. But he was certainly, or she was certainly letting us know that was ready to get out of here and was gonna defend him or herself if necessary. And I remember I still have a scar somewhere on my hand here from the toucan that we caught here, which has a big serrated bill, and just like used that to scratch my hand.
While taking the photo?
No, when I was taken out of the net afterwards.
Oh, so you take the birds out of the net sometimes?
Yeah. I worked as an ornithologist for a couple of different organizations during the course of the project.
Oh, great.
Not in Costa Rica, but they still trusted me to handle birds, so, which was great.
And how big is this bird in real life? Like, what's the size?
I mean, it is about the size of our stellars or gray jays, essentially, maybe slightly smaller.
So like about that big or so?
Yeah. Certainly smaller than a crow, bigger than a robin.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think about this. These are large photographs, and you know, you can just tell these birds are not this large. We don't live in that terrifying of a world, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to, part of the reason I'm happy to, so if you look at the 16 by 20 prints, some of the smaller prints we showed before, that's closer to life size for the birds. But when they get to be this scale, they're closer to our size. And essentially that increases that anthropomorphization of this experience of looking.
Yeah, I have a friend who loves birds, and her bird is small and terrifying. So like this idea of if birds were much larger and they're descended from the dinosaurs, this idea of their ferocity, just being, then as a human being, we become that predator, we become the prey.
Right on.
So I feel like,
Do we have a question?
We have a question from Jane.
Ooh.
She says, how do you edition your photos?
Oh yeah, that's a good question, especially as we're talking about sizes. So there are essentially three sizes I print them at. So 16 by 20 is are the smaller images that we've looked at before, and so I print 5 images at that size. And then this is at 28 by 35 inches, and I also print 5 at that size. And then there's actually a larger size, 40 by 50, which would be, how tall are you?
I am 5'4". So
Right.
I am
So about,
I'm 49 inches tall, right? Right?
no,
Oh, wait.
53, slightly shorter than you,
Yeah, that's right.
but prints that are about Mary height, essentially.
There we go. So
And
is that an option if someone would like one of those prints?
yeah, bring it on.
Okay.
So that's an edition of 3, and they're all printed on, they're inkjet prints, so scanned 4x5 negatives printed as inkjet prints on all museum quality archival materials. So.
I also have a color for you for your carrot.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
Yeah, what did you say? What?
now remember what you said. Yes, another part
I
of this
said
game.
about like 180, 57 or something like that.
You're in the right ratio. I've got a fancy little app here. I took a picture of the carrot, sampled the color. 255,
Oh, wow.
114,
That is
0.
out of gamut in terms of red. And yeah.
Well, from 0 to 256. So.
Oh, so, well, no, 0 to 255.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Wow.
285, 114, 0.
So Stan, do you feel like you would give Todd a prize, or do you feel like he needs to try again on some other?
I feel like that's accurate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the ratios were all there.
Oh, that's right.
Wow, I feel like,
That's from Stan Parker.
Well,
That is
impressing
accurate.
Stan Parker. I'm
That is,
very,
that means a
like,
lot
that
in
gives me
those.
some street credit, I think.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
cool.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't have done that off the dome.
No. One day.
Yeah, that's all like when I'm printing these, I'm sort of obsessively like sampling different parts and making sure they don't fall out of gamut in any of those channels. And
This app called the Carrot Safety Orange.
Oh, so
Ooh.
that
Blaze Orange.
because carrots, they're not as innocuous as one may think.
yeah.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Should we
Nice.
return to the
Yeah.
ornithological world from the world of
Sure.
carrots? and
Let's check out the common ground dove. So
The common
I
ground
photographed
dove.
this guy in Puerto Rico in 2009. Lived in southwestern Puerto Rico for about 9 months working as, that was my longest stint really, like working as an ornithologist. With some amazing folks doing research on endemic birds there. So birds that were only found in Puerto Rico. Common ground dove is not one of those endemic birds, so this is what we call bycatch. So it's not a bird we really wanted to catch, but it happened to fly into the net, and thus it was even more, like
Serendipitous.
the scientists didn't care about it, so I could photograph it, and yeah. So this is the first big bird that I caught, and
And so the size of this bird is big, you said. So this is it like a pigeon, a ground
well,
dove, or a dove?
Yeah,
From around here?
it's smaller than our mourning doves, but and pigeons. It's a small pigeon, but it's much bigger than, say, the chestnut-sided warbler that's the next one, or the hummingbird. So, most of these nets, the size of the holes sort of differs depending on what you're trying to catch. And so this was like the top end of what this net could have caught without the bird being able to just flop out and fly out, essentially. Because we were looking for Adelaide's warblers and Puerto Rican bullfinches and these endemic birds of Puerto Rico that are much smaller than this guy. So this was sort of a lucky bycatch, and yeah.
And so we've traveled geographically as we've gone around the room as well. Right?
Yeah.
To Puerto Rico.
So 5 main, so United States, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Costa Rica, and Brazil are sort of the main places that I worked. And I don't know if any of the photos that are up here are from Brazil, unfortunately. But the other 4 countries are certainly, or 4 places are represented.
Well, let's take a look at our friend right here. You said, is this the warbler?
Chestnut-sided warbler.
The chestnut-sided warbler.
And this is either a female or a wintering male. And this is probably a female. I photographed it over spring break. And so it doesn't have the chestnut side that would have been indicative of that name. And is present in the male. So the male would have like a streak of orangish, not dissimilar from the color of the wings of the common ground dove we just looked at. You can see a little hint of it there. But yeah, that's the name of it still, chestnut-sided warbler. And actually, that reminds me of this really interesting movement about bird names that's happening right now. Like what is in a bird name? A common ground dove. That's what this one is. Like if we saw that in Montana, that sure would not be common, right? And there would certainly be more common ground doves in other places. This is a female. It's not chestnut-sided. More problematic, I think, to a lot of young birders these days are various honorific names, particularly something like McCown's longspur, who is named after a Confederate general. And so there's a sort of a movement to sort of reevaluate bird names, and so it's interesting to, like a lot of the birds that I've photographed, their names have changed since I first photographed them. And one of those endemic birds of Puerto Rico we were just talking about, the Puerto Rican tody, its Latin name, its scientific name is Todus mexicanus. And that's because the first ever specimen that was collected for science, they mislabeled it and thought it came from Mexico.
Oh, and then it stuck for no
And it
reason.
stuck because scientists don't want to change things.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting too when you were saying that the chestnut in the name comes from the male, and when you said that, I actually thought like, oh, I wonder if all the descriptive names are based on the male, because that's from the patriarchal system through which many things have occurred.
I mean, most birds, the male is more colorful. There are certainly quite a few where the female is, though, like kingfishers. And the Puerto Rican tody is related to kingfishers. So
I
that
feel
the
like
females,
people are going to Google Puerto Rican toadies after this, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah. Tody.
Oh, Dodie. Oh.
Tody. And I think at least with some of these species, I'm pretty high in the Google image search results.
Oh, you're
at this
high in the
point.
Google. Oh, well, let's see there.
Which,
If you
I feel pretty good about that.
This is Friday night post live stream, folks. You've got a lot to do now.
Exactly. We have another question.
Oh.
Jane also asks, where do you have your prints made?
So I print most of them myself, actually. So yeah, I mean, all of these are printed with the Epson Ultrachrome HDR inkset. These days I've switched over to Canon printers, and so I'm using Canon inksets, and they're printed on Hanamula Photorag Bright White is the paper that I like, which is a watercolor paper which references the watercolor paintings of John James Audubon and Roger Troy Peterson that were super formative of these pieces.
Amanda says, smash the bird patriarchy.
Exactly. Smash that bird patriarchy, yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's long overdue.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some progress to be made in terms of renaming these birds and things that are both more fitting for the species and their histories. Yeah.
So I feel like we've come through the circuit of the gallery.
Yeah.
We have seen 3 different veins of your work. We had spent some time here on the wall when we talked about these pieces.
Right on.
Do you feel like we've covered everything for these? I mean, it's such a great selection. And I feel like, especially if you come in, well, I
It's
think
nice
local
to,
artist John Lodge looked through
notice
them all.
where, like, some of these, I mentioned that some of them were burnt a little bit. Some of them really got torched, so that one just like really got messed up, which is great. And I had a really great conversation with John at the opening about this process and these ideas of process and randomness and control, and how we can either control or not control the making of objects, and when that's important and when idea is important and such. So certainly, I think we could keep talking about any of these projects if we wanted to.
I mean, even like the consistency and the lack of consistency. I mean, yeah, there's so many dualities in these pieces. But should we just wrap up with the book section of Kirks
sure.
Grocery? Because it's important.
Take a look at some books and some ceramics, and ceramics not being mine, but books, the books being mine.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, everybody. This is it. We've talked about it, but now you're going to get to see it yourself.
Yeah, it's published in 2014 by Daylight Books. Is the whole portfolio. So this is sort of was the capstone of this project of almost 10 years of making pictures, and it's got the whole series. The 57 photographs, all in taxonomic order. So the order they would be in if you were to make a field guide, which is based on sure. Woo. Let's see, how can I do that? I'm trying to be graceful.
It's hard to replicate that initial moment, but
Yeah, no.
this is a new moment.
Here we go. This is a new moment.
New
I'm
moment.
going to do it well, I promise.
And it's going to be...
So all 57, and you can see they're broken down between passerines and non-passerines and oscines and sub-oscines, and the ways that scientists describe these
That's exactly
birds.
what I was thinking, yes.
And the cover designed by my friend Julian, who's working on some covers for a new series of mine about oceans now.
Just hold that still for a second, that cover.
For sure. And then there's actually an introduction by my father that's about that sort of idea of empathy. These images can feel cold at first, and so I wanted him to write a piece that would talk about my love of birds and his parenting and giving birth to something. And then there's 3 other essays in the back, that 2 by art historians and 1 by science writers, sort of describing the pieces in even more depth than we were able to talk about tonight. So very proud of this book, the first book that I published.
And what is the price of this book, which is available at Kirks?
This book is $50.
And we're putting it on the website as we speak.
It's going on the
It's-
Kirks website as we speak, and that motion is what happens.
4 minutes, you can have your own copy of it.
Yeah.
If you'd like, I can sign it, write an inscription.
Ooh.
I'll even put on lipstick and do like a little kiss mark on it
I
if you want me
think
to.
so, yeah.
You can just name it.
Internet promises.
Yeah, and that's one of 5 books that I've. This is the only book that was published by a publisher, but I've got 4 self-published books here as well, artist books that are. We could open up one of those and have a whole nother.
Could be a whole.
hour
So
of-
each one of these is another deep dive. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Different ideas. I think that, if I talk about like myself more generally as an artist, there are sort of two things that are really central to me, and one is ecology and climate change, and the other is photography and process. And all of these sort of like the work that we've looked at here, I sometimes call the CDs like supernovas or sort of pull together those two deep passions of mine, and these books sort of slice those two ideas in different ways.
Well, thank you,
Thank you.
for this great walk through the gallery. And now I have such more of an in-depth understanding of your work and you as an artist. Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time. It was
Oh,
a pleasure.
this is
Thank you
great.
guys for
Thank you all for
sticking
coming.
with us for however long it's been.
Yeah,
I'm not even
for-
sure.
Yeah, you
Uh,
you can tell us. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
been fun.
thank you. Yeah.
Cool.
So I think we're wrapping it up for another Kirks Grocery live stream. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace in the Middle East.
Oh, yeah.
Are we done?
Ooh.
Oh, it's a shame.
Thanks so much for tuning in tonight with Todd Forsgren, Mary Serbe. We have Stan Parker on camera tonight. Tori back here doing some lights and moderating. Rob over here just overseeing LB, always raising havoc. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time, which is going to be next month with Leah Tenari, who's in this back room here. Thanks so much for joining us. See you next time.